boats, the second varsity race, and then the first varsity race, which will be at 11:30 today. I'm here with old friend and lightweight senior coach at Yale. We've done this before. Welcome aboard, Andy.
Thank you, Charlie. It's a beautiful day here on the Thames, and 61 degrees, about 3.5 miles an hour. Nice little headwind. Beautiful day to race.
It couldn't be more beautiful. A little bit of a headwind. The tide's coming in, so we should have reasonably fast times.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, the conditions are fantastic. Anybody that's ever raced or rode on the Thames or even boated in any capacity knows how wild it can be out here, but today we've lucked out. It's just fantastic. Flat water all the way up the river.
Yeah. So we are here waiting the start of the freshman/third varsity race. It begins at 9:45, so maybe about 10 minutes from now. Andy, we used to have freshman races, and now we have third varsity races. What's happened here? What's happened to freshman racing?
Well, 2 years ago, the men's coaches decided to make freshmen eligible for varsity competition.
Right.
And so every school that had talented freshmen in there, now they could treat their freshmen just like any other sport, where if you're talented, you can be in the starting 5 in basketball or the starting 11 in football or what have you. And that really has changed the game considerably for ancient regattas like this one, the oldest one in America. And now it's a choice for each coach whether to continue to maintain the freshman tradition as it's been handed down through the years, or whether to take your most talented freshmen and put them up in the higher boats.
Well, I know that Harry Parker, whom we lost 2 years ago, was very much a believer that the freshman race should continue, feeling, I think, that the opportunity for incoming students to have the opportunity to race at perhaps a little bit lower level, get used to the sport before they were subjected to the challenges of the second V and the first V was a good idea. But I think that, as you say, has given way to now the 3V competition, which we'll see today.
Right. In fact, now it's somewhat a similar format where it's just your 1, 2, 3. You put your best guys in the first 8 and the next 8 guys in the second 8 and so forth on down the line.
And when we go over the cruise, I think one of the things we'll find is that there are a number of freshmen and a number of sophomores that are in the 1V boat.
Yes, exactly. And the Yale JV is 6 freshmen are in the Yale JV now. So that's a testament also to the level of talent that these two schools and schools across the country are able to recruit from around the world.
Well, as we wait for this to start, a little history. This is the 150th race, but it really is the 164th anniversary of the regatta, which started in 1852 on Lake Winnipesaukee when Yale challenged Harvard to some races up there in New Hampshire. They showed up with 3 boats, and Harvard showed up with 1 boat. And ever since, it's been going forward with the interruptions only of some of the war years, including the Civil War. This is how long this thing has gone on.
Well, some people would also say this is only the 135th running of the race, given some of those war years that are exceptions, and whether you count races that were held on the Housatonic, for example, or up at the Charles, whether they were 2 miles or just the 2,000-meter course or what have you. So Tom Wheel is the guy to talk to for that. Anybody's really interested, there's a fantastic article about just this subject in the program, which is accessible online as well.
Well, that's great. That's great. So
worth a great read.
So this is the regatta, the race that really began intercollegiate sports. This is the first time that any university in the United States chose to enter into athletic competition against one another, and look at where it is today with the NCAA and all and women's racing is just really taken off in the world of rowing. It's just it's a sport I don't think anybody in 1852 ever had any idea of what it would come to.
Right. Well, it's funny you bring up the NCAA because the original origin of the race was a hotel owner on Lake Winnipesaukee wanted to create some business for his hotel. So he thought, well, these boat clubs are happening. Let's invite them all up, and all their fans and supporters and parents will come up and rent my hotel room and eat my food and pay my bills during the soft season in May. So, it's really grown to something that's immense, of course, collegiate athletics all over the country, but it's nice that this race still exists. Now it's moved, of course, to the River Thames, which is a long and fairly straight body of water for 4 miles, and it's just a great tradition to be a part of.
Well, now let's talk about these 3V boats. Let me give you the rundown on the Harvard third varsity boat. It's coxed by Jack Smith out of Worcester, Mass. Dom Golliver is sitting in the stroke seat. He's from Sydney, Australia. Phil Bates is in the 7th seat from Bethesda, Maryland. Juri McUdom is from Estonia, from Tallinn, Estonia. They grow people very tall in the Baltic states. He's in the six seats. Ryan Rasmussen from New Zealand is a freshman, and he is in the 5 seat. Andrew Emmett is in the 4 seat, again from Australia, Melbourne, Australia. Sean Vendrenil, I guess, is from France. I should practice on my French pronunciation. Rory Golliver is at 2, and Adam Jones from York, England, sits in the bow seat. So 2 freshmen, 3 sophomores, 2 juniors, 2 seniors, and really an eclectic mix of nationalities in this Harvard boat. And Yale?
And Yale, as they compete for the New London Cup today, they've been 3-4 on the season. They were 4th in the petite final at the sprints, but they did rally and come in a very decent 6th place at the IRA. Of course, Harvard was 2nd in that race, about 8 seconds ahead. But this crew has 3 seniors in it, 5 juniors, including the coxswain, 1 sophomore, and no freshman in the 3rd varsity event. And we'll go down the lineup real quick. The coxswain is Mackenzie Lee. She's a junior from La Cañada, California. Hope I said that right, from the Polytechnic School. Simon Keaton, a senior. Now here's where the big boys come out to play here. He's 6'6", 215 pounds, from Melbourne, Australia, and Xavier College. He was 6th seat in the Yale Varsity last year. Henry Bird, a junior, 6'1", 176, from Deerfield in Bedford Hills, New York. 6th seat is Robin Molin Griegel, a sophomore, 6'2", 198, another Australian from Sydney. His school was the Pittwater House. 5 is Gerard Kuning, a senior, 6'7", 210, from Bow, New Hampshire. 4 seat, Elliot O'Reilly, a junior, 6'5", 210, from Les Eaux, France, and Guillaume Grammer, so he a Frenchman who's going to school in Australia. Ed Reeves, the 3 seat, a junior, 6'8", 202 pounds, from Auckland, New Zealand, and King's College. Peter Totora, an American, a junior, 6'2", 180, from Fairfield, Connecticut, and Fairfield Prep, right down the road here. And the bow is Will Rosenblum, a senior, 6'4", 195, from Winnetka, Illinois, and New Trier High School. Pete and Simon were members of the Yale Varsity. Pete was the stroke last year, and now he's the 2 seat of the 3rd varsity.
Yeah. So, in terms of just performance on the race course, might be a slight edge to the Harvard crew, but then again, a lot of changes have gone on since the IRA, both, and I'm sure in all these crews. So it's going to be a barn burner, I think.
Yeah, the coaches are still trying to find the best lineups. Of course, the varsity event is the most important, followed by the JV. But the 3v2, these athletes take this race. Here on the line, they have the same butterflies that the varsity athletes are going to have.
Right. So it's absolutely almost no wind. The flags are hardly moving here. The water is absolutely dead flat, and so we really should have some really great racing here. No fight with the waves, no fight with the wind. It's just 2 miles, a bit longer than the 2,000 meters that these guys have raced all season. For 2 miles, a mile is 1.6. I think.
1,609 meters.
Yeah. So 2 times that is a little bit bigger than the 2,000 meters. So it's going to be a test, as it will be both in the JV race and the varsity race.
Well, as you can see here, we have video this year, and Harvard in their traditional crimson singlets with a big block H on the chest. Yale in their traditional blue singlet with a block white Y on their chest. Right. One athlete has a white T-shirt on. It's not really that hot out here today. It's beautiful weather to race.
And what's happening now is we're getting alignment. One of the committee boats off to our right is trying to make sure that the alignment is absolutely bow on bow, so that we have a fair start and no one has an advantage.
Well, both boats are port stroked with an interesting 7-6 bucket in the Harvard 8. Maybe our cameraman can get that.
Yeah. And when we say a bucket, normally these boats are boated, if you will, port starboard, port starboard, port starboard, port. And but a bucket is when 2 of the guys row on the same side, and I guess there's some advantage in that. And I guess it really is to try to manage the torque in the boat. Is that the fundamental reason?
Well, every coach has their own reasons, but you might do that because those 2 guys tend to have a great swing together, and you want to get them, and they just happen to be on the same side.
Yeah.
Okay, we have alignment. Our referee today is Chris Groot.
Yeah, out of the PNRA, the Princeton National Rowing Association. Chris has been a long time. Harvard has the coxswain has her hand up to make sure he's now pointed. Everybody's ready. There we go.
We have a start.
Nice smooth start, very clean start on both boats. I get a stroke rate here. Harvard is at 46, I get. Yale
47.
47, so really off here with a sprinting start. We expect to hold these strokes for maybe 30, maybe even 40 strokes, and then settle into a pace in the high 30s for the balance of the race.
Harvard's doing a nice job here. They look like they have about a half a length lead right now. A little look over from the 4 seat. From Harvard, another look. Another look. Yeah, he wants to know where the Yale crew is, that's for sure.
Harvard's down at 35 now, settled it in. And Yale
is 36 and a half, 37.
Yep. Again, just perfect conditions here. No excuses to look for, whether it be on the water or in the wind. It's just nice, smooth rowing with Harvard now perhaps a half a length, maybe even 3/4 of a length as they head for the 1.5 mile mark.
Right. Well, we're about 1:20 into the race right about now. Harvard's got about 3/4 of a length, I'd say. And this one actually is a tough, the 4 miler, you have to get into a good pace. But a 2 miler, is it 2K plus, or is it something still that you need to settle into a rhythm? There's obviously a lot of looking over from the Harvard crew.
Yale overstroking the Harvard crew. I get them at 37 and Harvard at 35. And here we go, maybe 3 or 4 strokes before the 1.5 mile mark. 1.5 miles to go. Half a mile into the race.
Right, about 2 minutes, 2:05 right to that mark. And Harvard, I'd say, has about a length. Yale is getting after it right away at the catch. A little bit of check there, perhaps. And Harvard has just about got a length. But it's only 2.5 minutes into the race.
Yes.
This is probably under 10 minutes, so you're about a quarter of the way through. Harvard's, Yale's holding them, but they're
a little bit of open water.
Not making too much progress back.
Yeah.
Now Harvard doesn't have to crane their neck too much to see where the Yale crew is.
Nice and smooth rowing here. I watched the stroke in the Harvard boat. It just seems very, very comfortable. Well, as does the stroke of the Yale boat.
Yeah, that's Simon Keenan. He's got a lot of power, that guy, and Yale needs to start inching back a little bit.
Yeah.
That's so Mackenzie Lee, the coxswain, can start saying some good things. Okay, Harvard got out, but our rhythm is working. We're working our way back. It's not quite happening right now, but there's plenty of time to get that rolling.
Right. Harvard now, as you can see, if you're streaming this on the Ivy League digital network, you can watch this race, which is now about a half a length of open water. By the way, if you're hearing this on the radio on WICH out of New London, you can also watch it by going up Google Ivy League digital network and look for the Harvard Yale race in the click-throughs, and you will come to watch this thing live.
Well, Harvard is very comfortable, Charlie. As they approach the mile mark here, they're going to get through just over 4:30, so it'll be just over a 9-minute race. They're not really moving substantially away from Yale, but and right now, boom, 4:32 for Harvard, and Yale about now 4:37. So about 5-second gap.
Yep. You talked about it when we started this race, that here we are on the not the Thames, but the Thames. And the reason we race down here, not only for the historical aspects of it, but it's really one of the only rivers here in New England, or even bodies of water, that gives you the opportunity to row 4 miles in almost straight course. And it was straight at one time before the Navy base was built, but nonetheless, this is one of the rare places where boats can race side by side for such a long distance.
Well, the current is always a factor too.
Yeah.
And it's an incoming tide, so that should make things a little bit easier. However, they do have a slight opposing wind. And Harvard's taking advantage of that right now. Look at this flat water. It's really incredible. And the Harvard drives are a little bit more horizontal. The blade work a little tighter than Yale, and that's telling the difference.
A little bit of an interesting backstory, Andy. The Harvard crew was down here, and back in 1968, one of the great coxswains of all times ran into this green buoy, took the bow right off of a stem fleet. And my understanding is that Harvard came down here this year and the coxswains did it again. They took the riggers right off one side of the boat. And what people don't realize is that coxswains cannot see directly in front of them. These huge oarsmen, they can't see around it. And if they don't keep track of things like buoys, there's hell to pay.
Right. Well, Mackenzie Lee, the coxswain of Yale, has imagine somebody 6'6", 215 on your windshield. It's hard to see around that person, and that's her task now. She's doing a nice job, actually, of staying just on the outside of the Harvard wake. But that also means that her crew needs to do a better job because the Harvard wake is ahead of them. Which means that Harvard now has opened up to about a 3/4 length lead.
Yeah, too, that my understanding is that when you get a lead like this, that what you want to do is close the gap a little bit. So the guys behind you can't actually see you. It's harder. They have to crane their necks around to see where they sit.
Well, the wind is picking up a little more here. The flags on this the boat are starting to whip a little more, and we're approaching quarter mile to go here with through about 6:51.
Harvard's at 34 now.
Yeah, they're pretty comfortable.
And I got a 36 for Yale, trying to come right back into this.
They're about 6 seconds. Harvard picked up a second through that last quarter. But they look very relaxed and very long and really moving the boat pretty well here.
Yeah. And of course, that's what happens when you get out here at a lead like this. You can just take a fraction of that pressure off and swing along and get the and actually pick up speed. Whereas if you're behind, you pull a little bit harder, and often the consequence is you go slower.
Yeah. Well, he is hammering a bit here. Hitting the front end very hard, but not really picking the boat up and moving it as well as the Harvard crew right now. And over 2 miles or 3 miles or 4 miles, that's going to have an impact.
Right.
But the story so far was just that Harvard got out to about a length, and then were able to relax just enough.
Yep.
And a length eventually became a length of the seat, and then another seat, and so forth. It'd be interesting to see if this is the Harvard MO as we go up and the Yale crews get more and more powerful, to see if Harvard tries to do that and get a length and hold it, or whether they play a little more cat and mouse. Which is why we're here today, to watch the races, right?
Exactly. Well, the rock, the fabled rock, is coming into view here. This is a huge outcropping of granite here on the New London side of the river that annually has been fought over in terms of who can put the insignia of their college. But I guess that's changed now. Whoever wins the combi race, which was raced last night and won by Harvard, is now the keeper of or has the right to paint their letter on this rock. So here we are, the big H, signifying the win of the combi boat.
Well, Yale has stopped Harvard moving away, and they're putting on a last-minute surge, which has held the margin to what it has been for the last 2 minutes. But it's not going to be enough.
Only about 15 strokes now for Harvard coming into this. And we'll watch the flag here on the committee boat, try to get exactly what the margin is. And watch that flag go down, then it'll come up again for Yale. Down.
922.9 unofficial.
Up you go. 920.
7.6 or 0.6. I got about a 4.6 second gap.
Yep. What a race! A great race. Harvard getting out early, and then just moving smoothly forward, opening it up to maybe about 3/4 of a length, and then I wouldn't say sitting on it, but just holding that split.
Yeah, Harvard was very efficient during that row. Very horizontal, not a lot of wasted energy, not a lot of blades up in the air, keeping them pretty tight to the water.
And then we just heard the hooray from the Harvard, and now the response from Yale. I mean, this is what this sport's all about, is the camaraderie that comes after the race and the respect that each crew shows for the other. I think it's one of the things that happens in our sport that it really is something to watch and be proud of.
Yeah, you know, these crews have been, they don't, at the beginning of the year in September, they don't really know where they're going to be sitting, if they're going to row in the 3V race or the JV or the varsity or what have you.
Yeah.
But they do know that they have a Yale crew to race at the end of it, or a Harvard crew to race, and they've been thinking about these guys all year, and eventually you find out who is sitting in the seat opposite you and the other crew, and you know, it's something that those people share amongst themselves up here at the two camps at Gales Ferry and Red Top, and you know, you have a lot of respect for those guys because they're going through the same thing you are. Right. And it hurts when you have to hand over your shirt.
That's
to
right.
Your peer, but it's a sweet feeling when you get theirs.
And betting shirts is a long time tradition in our sport. You win the race, the boats come together, you shake hands, and the winner takes the shirts. It's a little tough to row home when you're naked, but there you go.
And for every time except one, you will come back and get a chance to do it again.
Yeah.
So as the two crews sit here at the finish, we're going to make our way down to the 3-mile start and get ready for the JV race, the second boat race, which will happen at 10:30, I believe.
10:30 is that race. So we'll be back to you on the Ivy League Digital Network and on WICH in perhaps 20 minutes.